Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. Oh, 6:32. This is just to let you decide whether you're in the right place, this is the Wednesday, April 19th meeting of the Mount Escutney School District Board. So that was that. I have a few changes for the agenda this evening. Are you ready, board? Mm-hmm. Okay. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the open meeting law violation pointed out by Misty Booten at some point in the last week.
Who would like a hard copy?
I would, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's in YouTube? Yeah, you do?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I'll leave these here if anybody wants to come in.
Okay, I'm calling this meeting to order once again at 6:34 p.m. This is the Mount Escutney School District monthly regular meeting. I have a couple of changes and additions to the agenda to make note of. First, I would like to acknowledge that we had an open meeting law violation pointed out by Misty Booten. It was a violation. To be honest, there was so much information. This was about the validation resolution. To be honest, there was so much information about what to do and not to do that I picked the wrong response about the election validation resolution and said that we signed the document to preserve privacy. That was not the reason we signed the document instead of voting on it in public. In fact, we should have voted on it and signed it. And I would like to add that add that public vote as part of our items for action. So that's the first thing. A second open meeting law violation was pointed out by Danielle Wartz, and it occurred when I announced that we were going into executive session last week to discuss the questions we plan to ask board candidates. That was a violation. To rectify this, we will discuss what we talked about during the executive session tonight during our discussion section. And three, to mitigate these open meeting law errors, we will plan to have a discussion of open meeting law, but not tonight. We'll spend time on it at our next meeting, as well as the next addition to our agenda, which is a discussion of adopting Robert's rules for small boards. And finally, one more addition to our agenda, which is a discussion of the district clerk. Does anybody have any questions about any of those?
Where in the agenda will the district clerk discussion be placed?
That will be, it'll just be under discussion, and it will be the first up under discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Now I see a hand, I heard a blue. Nancy Pendrick, I heard your
I'm
blue.
sorry, I just did not pick up your last word. The second change was about district court?
No, the second, okay. A second open meeting law violation that was pointed out by Daniel Wartz occurred when I announced we were going in, oh no. The district clerk.
Clerk, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, one of the positions that Amy signed or stepped down from.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Does anybody else have any questions about these additions to our agenda? And by anyone, I mean board members, really, but does any member of the public have any questions about these additions to our agenda.
I do.
Yeah.
Could you tell the public that, about my letter, thinking
Yeah.
about an open meeting violation and your response telling me that I was wrong,
Hold on.
so that the public's aware of it?
Hang on, let me find your, I should add that Mr. Taft, who is here with us
Thank you.
today, David Taft, who's here with us today, let me just find. Let's see. Oh. Okay. Um, Okay, David Taft, who is here with us this evening, also wrote a complaint about open meeting law violation, which stated, it was also about the executive session. And he, in his letter to the board, he pointed out a section of the law, which is what I cited before we went into executive session last week, which was the appointment, section 3, the appointment for employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee, provided that the public body shall make a final decision to hire or appoint a public officer or employee in an open meeting and shall explain the reasons for its final decision during the open meeting. So that will be part of our well, that was the reason for our going into executive session last week, was so that we could talk about, and we'll talk during the discussion section, we will talk about what was discussed during that part of the meeting. Then Mr. Taft's letter also said, it cited some statutes regarding the Brown, is it called Brown decision?
Brown Act.
The Brown Act, there it is. So he then, Mr. Taft's letter then cited the Brown Act, and unfortunately, the Brown Act is a California statute, so it did not apply to Vermont. And so I wrote in my response, pursuant to your letter dated received yesterday, I am pleased to report that Mount School Board is in compliance with Vermont statute. One of the sections you cited in your letter provides confirmation, and I cited what I just cited to everybody here. And that is exactly what our announced and intended plan is, to conduct executive sessions regarding the appointment of a public officer and make the final decision to appoint the public officer in an open meeting. And then I said, the second section you cited was from California state law and includes mention of that state's Brown Act. And right in the section you highlighted, the Brown Act concerns public participation in local government. For more information, you can look at the statute here. Unfortunately, the Brown Act does not apply in Vermont. Many thanks for the time you clearly put into writing to me and the board.
Thank you.
And so, okay. Next, I will ask the board if you have all had a chance to review the minutes from our last meetings on March 13th and April 3rd.
I do have one correction.
Okay,
I'm listed as a member of the public, and I should be listed as a student rep on the board.
can you please speak up? I can barely hear you.
I was listed as a member of the public, and I should be listed as a member of the board, as
Okay.
a student rep on the board.
That's a good correction. Nice catch. And which one was that in, Hudson?
313.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments about the minutes from the last two meetings? Okay. I will take a motion. Is that better? Or is it that one in here?
This
Or
one.
can you turn this one off?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from 3:13 and 4:3 as corrected.
So moved, Davis?
Second, Rebecca. And that is. Okay, Davis, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Rebecca, how do you vote? Aye. Nancy, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Bill, are you here?
Aye.
Okay. And I am an aye. Okay. The next item on our agenda is public participation and announcements. Oh, wait.
Okay, I did have something for addition to the agenda.
Oh, okay.
I know, and so, I wanted to bring up to the board, the Windsor community dinners have started again, and they're like once a month at Trinity Church. And I think Mary McNaughton started them. And I know that there are various organizations in town that will be serving the community. And as we're looking for different opportunities to engage the community, I thought that that may be something that we could think about and maybe make a commitment. And it would probably be every 6 months or something, because it's a monthly thing. So there's a whole list of folks that are already doing that, but I just thought that would be another community, another group that we can connect with.
Okay, I will put that, where is that? Okay, here it is. I'll put it under community outreach.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Public comment is not, public comment is not legally required, but we believe it is crucial for us to hear from the community members about their concerns over issues. Through these meetings, our board models for students how to conduct public discourse, and that the board and members of our community can approach controversial issues in a civil and constructive manner and can demonstrate mutual respect. Having said that, please note that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed for discussion. We ask that all speakers direct their comments to the board directly and not to the audience. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. No one speaks until recognized. No shouting or profanity. No questions or comments about specific personnel on these matters. We ask that you go through appropriate administrative channels. We will insist that speakers and members of the audience maintain civility and respect any divergent views that others possess. Likewise, you may expect that any restrictions will be viewpoint neutral. Please do not expect the board to respond to your questions and comments tonight. We take your concerns seriously, and we want to have sufficient time to process and research issues if need requires it. We may respond at a future meeting or have an appropriate staff member get back to you at an appropriate time. So, Daniel Wirtz, I see your hand.
Thank you. So I wanted to go back to last meeting in the announcements. Student Rep Hudson Rainey mentioned that the walkout that was happening, that was, and this is the statements I make are just from an Eagle Times article and from the meeting minutes. It was hosted by Windsor High School against gun violence generally. So for that, I assume it was something that was approved directly or not by the school board. Per that Eagle Times article, Hudson made some calls on legislators to do something, quote unquote. And to me, that sounds a whole heck of a lot like direct political activism. And I don't think that has any place in schools personally. But on that note, I think that there's kind of a precedent that comes into play that you really have to consider here, that in allowing a walkout for a, political cause, social activist flavor of the day, whatever it may be, you have to allow it for the flavor of the next day and for the other side of the next one too. And there's also a tie into this with what I think is an ongoing conflict of interest that Representative Burrows has as being on the school board, because Burrows would be one of those legislators that Hudson called on to do something. There's a bill active, House Bill 98, that Elizabeth is signed on to, which itself is unconstitutional, but that's another story. So, there's a thread here where there's a direct connection to the legislator from the school board to the school. And I want to know if there's a policy around this dealing with student walkouts. Would some be supported, others not be supported? Perhaps if there's a walkout of a different kind, like on this issue, just a bunch of students wanted to walk out in support of constitutionally guaranteed Second Amendment rights and maybe call on another group of legislators to repeal Vermont's firearm magazine capacity ban, whatever that is. The point of the specifics don't really matter, but the precedent set is that, yes, the board would have to be fully in support of that. There would be no issues, no student punishment, no nothing. So I just encourage you to think about the implications of this. Consider setting some policy that applies equally to any walkout or type of student-hosted activism or event, as opposed to kind of rolling with the flavor of the month that garners sympathy with the majority group that tends to make the laws and constitute the board, but it's not necessarily the majority group as far as the voters of the town go. Thank you.
And I would remind everybody present that we had a hearing about whether I was whether there was a conflict of interest between me serving on the board and me being a legislator. And the fact is that there are 12 other legislators who are also school board members. And I don't know what the count is right now, but several of them serve on the education committee in the legislature. And a conflict of interest is defined as receiving personal financial gain from an action. So just to clarify what that is. Does anybody else have a public comment or question? Yes, Mr. Tapp.
First, I want to thank all of you for putting your valuable time into coming and serving the community. I personally have been a board member years ago, and I know that it's a thankless job, and no matter what you do, you're never going to make everybody happy. I want to comment on the American Disabilities Act. You know, that if a lot of you don't know the history or anything, but Winthrop was sued about 15 years ago over the American Disabilities Act. I am hard of hearing. That's why everybody's supposed to have a microphone. And if a microphone is not available, you're supposed to offer hearing devices for people that are hard of hearing. And if you look at the history, that was not a school lawsuit, it was against the town of Windsor. And that, after that happened, everybody provided hearing microphones, and so it's something to think about, because a precedent's been set, and I can't hear this young man over here. I'd love to hear everything he says, but I can't hear a word he's saying when and I guess when you do this virtually, you know, everybody's got their little machine there they love, but if you're still an old school guy that wants to come and hear what's going on, it's not working for me. And now I'm going with my I apologize if anybody has been offended by some of the questions that some of us have had. And like I said, I know it's a thankless job, and I know you do the best, and we can't all agree. But I became involved because my personal concerns are, I see a pattern here of things starting to happen and then finding out that they aren't done properly. And it starts with the 2-year fiasco of the former principal, which, no matter how you look at that, no matter which side you're on there, when it comes down a $650,000 settlement and a letter of recommendation, that doesn't look like we've won, So due to the lack of due process and quite frankly, jumping the gun until you get all your facts and your ducks in a row. And then I'm going to give you some other examples. The Mount Scottney School Board Town Meeting warning in the town report that I have right here doesn't even state where the meeting was going to start. And it said it's going to be adjourned to the next day to go to the voting booth, but it didn't. And so I'm assuming old timers, well, it's in the Lois White Theater, different day, but they have microphones and they have we paid a lot of money for that auditorium. Well, when you're only going to have 2 or 3 public show up, I get it, you don't really need the auditorium, but no microphone in the cafeteria. I come in the same way I've come in for 20 years, but I can't get in because the back door's locked. There was no telling people, park on the upper level, come into the cafeteria. I'm assuming things, okay, my mistake, I'm assuming, but there's no information to the contrary. So I get in, okay, great, we're gonna have something to eat. The compressor in the cafeteria was so loud with no microphones, I couldn't hear a word there either, it just goes on and on and on, and
Mr. Taft, I'm sorry, but your time is up.
and Daniel's wasn't?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, no, thank you. Well, I have one more thing though. I'd like to know how many of you present board members have took the School Board Association training, and I encourage you all to do it, especially if you haven't, and especially the new board member that you're going to appoint. So, good luck. You're going to need it.
We're actually required by law to take it.
No, you don't.
Ms.
They've
Davis-
all taken it?
Yeah, we have to.
Okay.
But we have until recently had a 15-year board member who was also a member of the Vermont School Board Association regional representative, and she knew the stuff inside and out, and that's,
Apparently not, there was some mistakes made.
well, according to the town charter,
They don't cover, the town charter is separate for the school. It is 100%, you can call the clerk and they'll tell you that.
When the
The
two,
school
when the
board,
two.
which charter do we fall under? Because now we're West Windsor and we're Windsor.
well,
Do
we're
we fall under
following,
the West Windsor one or the Windsor one?
as a matter of fact, West Windsor does not have a town charter.
And neither does the school, the
When the
town
merge
charter
happened.
is not the school board charter.
I would ask you to dial back for Tom.
It was a statement.
Okay. I'm sorry? Are you directing a comment at me?
He said she was talking to me, I said, no, she wasn't.
Anyway, no, I can't even remember what we were supposed to be talking about.
Another person.
Okay, the next comment. Misty, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. I think kind of piggybacking off the training is my question to the board would be what training you've had on open meeting laws. I think that could definitely benefit this board. That's not really my only question. It just kind of came up after hearing the training question. But I think that what I'm really wanted to say tonight was that I feel that your choice to conduct interviews in executive session shows me kind of how reckless a like-minded board can be. It's dangerous to have any body of government that does not have a diversity of thinking. Your 6-0, 5-0 votes really show how narrow-minded our board is. The recent reoccurrences of oversight, the unlawfulness, really proves that when there's no variance of dialect, a lot goes missed. You do a disservice to those you serve when there isn't well-rounded conversation regarding important matters. This can be pointed back to the firing of Tiffany Riley. Had the board had more diversity, the outcome may have been different. And while the board may not fully understand the ripple effect this sent through our community, regardless of personal opinion, it most definitely could have had a less negative impact or outcome with a board who had varying backgrounds and opinions. In the end, I guess my point is, it was in very poor judgment to keep candidate interviews, viewpoints, and reason of interest to the community and to the voters, and why it would be so important to have diversity on this board and what that would bring. As in Windsor, we are a very diverse community, and I believe that that is what, in sense, has always kept us grounded as a community, is our diversity. This board does not show that. This board continues to vote across the board, and it's very dangerous, in my opinion. It's quite reckless, honestly. And I don't think until the board finds balance that they will actually be able to function in a lawful way. The reason of diversity in communities is because we learn from each other and we teach each other. And I don't see that with this board. And I really think it's becoming a major problem. And I want to say that I have submitted my complaint of violation open meeting law to the General Counsel, Secretary of State. I have received word back. I'm waiting for more information. And I do have community support to bring this to civil court if this is necessary. But I urge you to start being more open-minded to beyond just this board, because it's creating unlawfulness and it's just not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a public comment?
So Windsor has the second oldest alumni association.
Can you speak up, please?
Windsor has the second oldest alumni
And can you please
association.
identify yourself?
If I
I said
get 3 minutes,
I
I
asked
get
you.
3 minutes. once I do.
I asked in the beginning for everybody to identify their names
Nobody.
and,
So I'm James Aldridge, I'm from Windsor.
Okay.
Windsor has the second oldest alumni association in the country. And in the last 2 years, we've been in the papers for nothing to do with anything to make the kids' education better. My big issue, I guess, would be cellular devices in schools. And this is where my phone's dead, I've been driving all day. In the last 2 weeks, I've had three fights sent to me, which then got sent to everybody in the school before that. And this has nothing to do with schooling. So when a kid texts somebody and their teacher is talking, you know what they're doing? They're waiting for their friend to respond. And I get that there is a reason why we would have a cell phone, but in every classroom, there's a phone. The school has phones if we need to call the parents. This puts teachers in a tough spot because they can't do anything about it. These fights, it's almost funny to these kids. These are in public areas. The teachers are then put in a tough spot because they have to break them up. Prior to them fighting, they can't touch them, but as soon as what are we supposed to do when they start fighting? And so what I believe is we need to make decisions to make a better education for all of these kids. And sitting here and arguing about elections and Tiffany Riley and all that is not doing that, right? We need to focus on making a better education for everybody involved, not for just one kid, right? Public schools are really geared towards like the average kid, not really the high-end kids, not really the low-end kids, just because you gotta push kids through and we can't necessarily advance everybody if they're not at that level. I wish that my phone was available. I would show you these three fights and show you how disturbing they are. But as a person that hires a lot of kids, I should not be able to call any one of my workers that go to the school, and they should not be able to answer their phone in class. And I think if parents want to have pushback on that, they should come and sit in this meeting. But I think the root of this problem is cell phones. There also is an issue with, and this is my last thing, kids are falling asleep, right? Now they're taking pictures of these kids and posting them. And that's not good either. Yeah, there is a whole Instagram page of this, right? And so this is what happens. Most bullying is not happening in person anymore. It's happening on a cellular device, a computer, and then then it comes in and we're keyboard heroes, which is not a great thing. And if any of you would like these videos, I will show them. There is one that is very disturbing. Someone could have seriously got hurt, like really bad. Someone smashed their head off. Yeah, it's not good. But what we're seeing in the background, these kids are laughing about it that are taking the videos.
writing the video.
Period. So,
I'm sorry to say that your time is up. I really appreciate you bringing this to our board, and I will put it on our next agenda. I'll make sure that we get.
like I said, it puts like everybody in a tough spot. I get that, but it's definitely an issue that needs to be addressed.
Thank you for bringing that to us. Let's see. Okay. Anybody else have a public comment or question or announcement?
I do have an announcement. I wanted to congratulate Wendy Moody for becoming, did she just become girls coach?
I believe so, Kate.
I just heard congratulate Wendy Moody, but I didn't hear why.
Did she just become coach?
Yep, she became the head softball coach. There's an article in the Valley News about how she's bringing fun back to softball. They have been fun to watch. It's been cold out there, and I have to bundle up in my car still because I'm getting older.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? Yes, Bill?
I'd like to encourage anyone who has the opportunity to read the article in the Vermont Digger and Valley News on the difficulties of the new state testing. It really highlights a dysfunction in the state government around the Agency of Education. This is not the first time in which I have personally have to deal with a new system being completely dysfunctional. And I know this supervisory union had to deal with another one. I think the more people who are aware of the hiring issues and the functional issues of the Agency of Education, the more possibility something will be done about it.
Thank you, Bill. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, we will keep moving on. Our administrative report is next.
Okay, sure. Welcome everyone. Happy April. I think I saw some snowflakes today, but I guess that's April. Here we go. Starting with big ideas, second slide there. You'll see some highlights across Mount Muscovy for Windsor and Albert Bridge. A lot of our focus right now is obviously a safe and successful rock and roll end of the school year, but also planning and setting the foundation for a successful next school year. So a lot of our work is looking at that, and I think you'll see some highlights there as well. I think you'll also see tonight a highlight of our school visitor procedures that we'll review for you all. I'll kick it off again, segueing to myself here for the elementary State Street side of Windsor School. I talked a little bit last time about our wildly important goal of focusing on foundational literacy. That work continues as we help our students develop their own leadership portfolios and develop their own student agency and skills. It's been a really exciting thing to watch. Our team has done a really fantastic job, so big kudos to the Windsor K-5 team. Rolled into our work with Leader in Me is also an evolution of our MTSS process, which is the multi-tiered systems of support, which we have to meet the needs of all students. In this process, our teacher team is digging into standards, looking at data, looking at how we can best address needs with great instructional practice that we check in on again with data. So it's been a really wonderful thing. The team's working really hard on that, and it's been some great momentum. Yes, please. Sorry.
Would you rather that we save our questions until the end or ask right in the middle of what you're talking about?
Whatever you prefer.
Okay.
Happy to go.
So you just said that the MTSS process is evolving. What does it evolve to?
Well, this a little bit is what I'm talking about. So Leader in Me, obviously, Core 2 is the next step of making sure that we are really drilling down with our data and looking at standards and seeing where we can best meet student needs with great instructional practice. So I think it is an enhancement, which has been really great.
So the data, you look at as part of the MTSS Core 2, you look at all of the data, behavioral and academic and everything else?
Yep.
Okay.
We have a lot of great tools and new ones coming on board this year, which help us get a better idea of student needs, which is great.
So do we have yet district-wide standards for behavior?
Yeah, we do. Well, I mean, we worked as an administrative team to lay out behavior responses that we are all using. We're constantly, it's new, So we're revising as we go. And our plan is that those will be public in the handbook next year, because it's important for parents to understand, what kind of the responses are when there are particular student behaviors. Knowing that all students are different and have different needs, so there is always going to be gray areas, right? We differentiate instruction. We sometimes need to differentiate our discipline. But it does give us a framework and a guide that we aspire to, follow. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome.
Sergio, is this data, is this information as you available to parents on?
Yes,
They can access it?
absolutely.
Okay, good.
Looking ahead to spring, a really exciting time of year. There's a lot that happens here. I am new to Windsor School, so I'm learning about Mountain Day and Field Day and all of those wonderful things. And the team has been wonderful about helping me understand and help dig into the planning for that. So we're looking very much forward to a great and busy end of the school year, continuing our hard-working classes and celebrating a great school year. We are also, as I mentioned in my lead up, doing our work in planning for and setting the foundation for a successful school year next year. So let's work on the master schedule, obviously working on hiring the best people to work with our students here at Windsor and getting all of the pieces ready to have a great school year next year.
For the 6th through 8th grade, I wanted to highlight that our students in 7th grade recently did an annual project where they were presented with a problem to help support students. They had to come up with a plan on how they would do this program, how they would employ people, what it would look like, and then they had to present it to community members, some of our own parents who were even on the call tonight, people who work in social work, people who work in the hospital with other schools, other students, and present to them the dilemmas, or what their pitch was, and then they were given feedback. Have you thought about this many employees? Have you thought about the ratios of the medical staff to students? And so it was just really a really nice interactive. Another piece that was really nice about this, it reminded me of our high school capstone presentations, how when our seniors present, we have juniors sit in and also our panelists, so they're preparing for next year. In this scenario, we had our 7th graders presenting and we had 8th graders who had done it last year, kind of also asking the questions along with the parents and the community members. So that was a great presentation that just happened in the last few weeks in our 7th grade. Another thing, across the SU, we worked with our middle school model across the SU, and we've been trying to do collaborative events. And we have another dance this time. It was hosted by Heartland School, and we had a lot of students from Windsor and Heartland and a few from Weathersfield. And I don't remember the numbers of students from Oak Ridge, but we had all had an invite to be there, and it was quite successful, and we thank Heartland for hosting the last dance. We have pretty regular class meetings in the middle school. I just wanted to say that recently our 8th graders have been taking the lead on a lot of their 8th grade class meetings, and they're really focusing on what they would like for their end of the year ceremony to look like, how they can be involved with our Leader in Me program. We want them to have more voice and be less driven by the teachers planning it. Of course, they want to hear their teachers' words and what they want to say about them at the kind of passage ceremony and stepping up ceremony, but the students are also planning to put their own spin and their own voice on that. And another thing they wanted to do, which they made all the decisions together, was they really liked the way the parents planned the celebration dance for them last year, and they wanted to do that again. And I left a message on David Aldrich's phone, and I hope you do that for me. But they want to use the rec again. They like that venue. I think they like to be out of the school building sometimes to feel like it's a little bit different place. So they are hoping that they could use the rec on a Friday after the last Friday of the school year. Sorry. Did I give you a date?
No, you didn't.
Okay, it's the last Friday. I'm going to email it to you now. So that is another thing that they're planning on, working on, and hoping to do, and taking charge of what they want their graduation to look like. And another thing coming up is, again, we are looking at what's happening for our seniors and plans for next year. Our 8th graders have been included in their voice for what they want in their high school classes and what are their interests. And Ms. Ryan probably could talk more about that, but they've been asked by Ms. Ryan and Ms. Vivian, the school counselor, to kind of start thinking about what are their wants and interests and needs and clubs and activities and kinds of courses they want. So that's coming up. There'll be more formalized questions on like exactly what classes after they and their families know what the program of studies is and where they have choice in places. And so that's happening as well.
Would this be the first year that the 6th and the 8th graders will have that sort of flexibility in creating their own schedule?
No, I think they've had some flexibility, at least in their specials courses and anything that wasn't a core class that they are required to take as a freshman. There is some flexibility in an honors course and other things they want. I'm sure Kate is making some changes to more flexibility for our courses in high school, so I know she can talk more about that. But our 9th graders have had choice for many years in certain places, not everywhere. Some things that are like a standard humanities 9th grade class and a 9th grade advisory, those kinds of things are pretty standard, but we can talk about the things where they do have choice. They've had choice in the past.
Yeah, I'd expect the 9th graders, but, because they're planning, you know, they're in the high school, but the 8th graders, I was gonna say, that's exciting.
Well, I mean 8th graders as getting ready to be 9th graders.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to say, I think I forgot to mention that we are in the hiring season and we have been asking a lot of our students. I've asked them like 3 different committees to join me in part to be either on a meet and greet or be a part of an interview committee, and that was really pretty special to the kids, and they're extremely insightful when we talk about meeting candidates. Yes, sir.
I imagine I know the answer to this, but is there some sort of continuity of the Leader in Me program and involving students in the hiring process?
I think it's kind of a direction we're going in. We're letting our candidates know really transparently, like, are you feeling comfortable doing a meet and greet with our students? Our students are leaders and we want them to ask you questions. It's very telling for us right away if our candidates shy away from that or want that, and the kids are excited and ready to do it. So when they say, yeah, I want to talk to kids, that makes it even a bigger win for all of us.
Awesome, love to hear it.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question. It's just to clarify, it's not, is flexible pathways 9 through 12? It is 9 through 12.
It is currently. We would love to expand it into the middle level. We've started talking about that.
I would say formally, it's 9 through 12, but I would say an 8th grader who says to us, I'm not feeling comfortable taking PE in this way. I am a dance student, I am a karate student, I am a fencing student. Is there another way I can earn credit? There's a movement class, can I earn credit? So it might not be called flexible pathways, but Kate and I work very closely with Ms. Vivian and the teachers. Can we offer the credit in a flexible way that fits the standards, meets the criteria, and gives students the path that they want and still meeting a height? So it might not be called flexible pathways, but we're offering it to our 8th graders if it works for them and we can make it happen.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do you have something to add?
Yes, when I was in 8th grade, when we were back with COVID year, we were in pods, so I was taking the same Spanish course that I had taken in 7th grade. So I was able to advance and take Spanish 1 online as a freshman, as an 8th grader. So it wasn't cool. So.
And our 8th graders still have that option. So it might not be called flexible pathways, but we want to offer anything we can to our students if we have the capability to do it.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought I was hearing when you were talking about
choices.
Yeah, the choices. I thought I was hearing flexible pathways.
Thank you for that, Colleen.
You're welcome. Ms. Ryan, are you ready?
Yep, can you go to the next slide? Oh no, my slide's not in here. I couldn't fit it all on that slide, so I'm gonna, what?
Is this the slide?
Oh yeah, there it is, sorry. So a couple things. One, our science department, we had March intensives, and Chris Rivet took a team to the Vermont Tech bridge building competition, and the team wound up finishing in 3rd place. They that was 3rd place overall in the high school division. So they worked on this during their March intensive, they won, and they each earned a $1,000 scholarship to Vermont State University. What's nice about this is this group of students that went and designed this bridge that worked closely with Mr. Rivet. They're not our students who are typically recognized for athletic achievements or math team or anything like this. So it was a really nice surprise, and their reactions and their pride was great to see. The high school is putting on the Little Mermaid. That is taking place May 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And we are putting on a show during the day for our elementary students. So if you can't make it there at night, please reach out to one of us and we'll help you get there during the day. And the last there is we've surveyed our seniors to see what they're doing next year. And this is just our very vague one. Are they going to college? What are they studying? And probably by the next board meeting, definitely the June one, we'll have definite what schools they're going to, what they're majoring in, what exactly they're planning to do after graduation.
I just wanted, I had a chance to talk with Tim Hebert, and I think he said something like 50 of our students are signed up for career technical classes next year at the Hartford Tech Center.
Yep, so there's about 50 between Springfield and the Hartford Tech Center. The other thing that came back this month is the Leader in Me team. Some of the students from there, they brought back a student awards assembly. And what was nice was how inclusive they made it and all the thought that they put into it to delaying the Hartford bus for those kids who were going, to recognize all the students who were Hartford Student of the Month. So we're slowly getting back on track and bringing back celebrations and recognizing students for all their hard work. And we're making sure that we're not just sticking to what takes place in our building, but what takes place through flexible pathways and outside of the building.
Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
So it's my turn. So we wanted to highlight a different being the voice option that we have a student who's identifies as being non-speaking. And we have a video clip, and with parent permission, they gave us permission to share. And so I'll read this. Hearing Trudy shares haiku assembly this morning. This is during the elementary assembly that happens, how often?
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly. Was such a joy. Thanks so much for giving him the instruction and opportunity to contribute his voice and to model that there are many ways to be the voice. So some of you will recognize the symbols used are the same symbol system that we have in all of the playgrounds, including out here. And the team of people next to the picture that you see are all the individuals that helped support Truman in writing this haiku and then figuring out the technology to get to share it in front of the audience. And it was amazing to watch and see, and then know all behind the scenes hard work that it took for the student to do this. And we're just so thrilled. And the family and the student are really trying to model how you can be the voice and not be a non-speaker. So Christine, if you click on the word haiku, fingers crossed it will work. Oh wait, I gotta go. It's the word haiku was on the wrong tab. Give me a second.
Yeah. It works. It did before. That went to my drive, so that is not. What about the play arrow?
It's just a screenshot.
That's just a screenshot, because I needed something to, other than words.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because it's in my drive, Christine.
Can we have Katie's screenshot?
Just, I can,
It's my drive.
Hmm?
My drive. It's not your drive.
Right.
When I click on it, it goes to my drive. Okay, so screen share, would you like me to stop sharing?
If you stop sharing that, I go to that, and I will screen share the. Oh, because I'm not. Well, yes, I am. A window, I'm right there. That's what I want. I should be able to, I think. Not just, sorry, this is technologically apparently difficult for me today.
You need that team to show you how to do it.
Okay, tab, there we go. There it is. If I share that, it should come up there. And thank you for being patient with my technology. I will go to where the tab go right there. Go to slideshow. All right, now we should be able to see it.
They did the same thing.
They did the same thing. Because I don't want to try clicking that again. I apologize. It worked earlier today when I tested it out. Actually, it was really loud.
Is it on your drive?
It is, but I'm gonna stop sharing so I can, I will get it queued up. So if you come back to me,
Yeah, we'll come back.
that'll be good. Okay?
So are you gonna stop sharing?
I'm stop presenting right now and I'll go get it queued up.
All right, you want me to jump in?
Yeah, I'm just gonna share.
All right, so some ABS stuff that's going on. We had 2 of our students accepted to the national GOP, which is pretty
Wow.
exciting. Yes, so that's 2 students made it, yep. Cool stuff. In the images, you'll see just kind of kids in action, doing the learning that we need to do. The bottom, if you're looking at the bottom left hand, I think really exemplifies uniqueness of each individual. They're making cookies, cutouts of wood and talking about how each piece of wood is its own story, its own path, its own journey, just like our own fingerprints tell us who we are.
Some people may not know, what is the GOP?
Geography B, sorry, yeah, thank you.
Where is the national GOP?
Why would you ask me? It is 7:30 at night. No. I'm not sure, I think, let's see. Is this maybe? I forget.
I thought they were going to DC, but.
Maybe it's DC, that could be. That could be. So every day before we walk in the building, we have a full school morning meeting and we say this thing before we walk in, which is, I belong here, I am valued, I am cared for, I am curious, creative, and caring. I am a leader and my voice matters. And all of these things came up from kids at the beginning of the school year. We talked about what do you want to experience when you walk in this room? Who do you want to be? How do you want to feel? And these were things that came out that the students chose. And so really paying attention to who they are as individuals, I think goes back maybe, Elizabeth, to your question of, is there a standard for student behavior, right? Behavior standards. And I think when we talk about that, I think it's important to remember that we meet every kid where they are. And while there are typical expectations or traditional things that most 8-year-olds, for example, can do, not everybody does that yet. Some people may be delayed in certain areas and able to do that. That's why we have a differentiated discipline approach, because you wouldn't treat a kid who has a learning disability for not being able to read through harsh consequences. You would teach them to read through skills and in a different way than perhaps you taught the original people. So we look at the behaviors the same way. Some behaviors are misbehaviors and we can treat them in more traditional ways. And some behaviors are skill deficits or stress behaviors, 2 different reasons for behaviors. So we try to respond to them in that way.
Well, I guess that's part of the reason that I was asking that, because let me first say, I am not an educator. I acknowledge that. I've been on this board and have walked with all y'all through the process of adopting SU-wide, working through the MTSS, and like, it seems to me that part of what we have been working towards is not standardizing behavior. And so, there's a disconnect there. for me.
Yeah, so there's a standards, when we talk about standards, we want to think about what we expect kids to know, understand, be able to do in terms of those things, and then we need to meet them where they are. So for example, in the picture on the top left, you'll see kind of in that back corner, these are different stations that kids are working in. You'll see a kid standing. I don't know about you guys, but back in my day, I wasn't allowed to stand at my desk. I had to sit at my desk. Now we recognize this kid's gonna do a lot better if he is standing while he is learning. So stand away, right? We wanna meet them so that they can do their best learning and not take away learning from others. Dennis.
I think that what this brings to mind for me, not so much as behavior, what was the term you used, expectations or standards, right? Yeah. I mean, I think that when we look at our student body through that equity lens, right? You're right, students are all coming from different places. And I think that policies, and I believe this is an SU policy that we've had a couple of readings of, when we can define what behaviors constitute certain things that do elicit an intervention, we can set that maybe is as close to the standards we have. But a term that I recall and really stuck with me from IDEA 2004 and what I forget the bill that preceded that, but is the concept of a free and appropriate public education. And I think that that's exactly what you're talking about here, right? Is the idea that any student, regardless of what they need to get to that point where they're able to access their FAPE or free and appropriate public education, is going to have that reasonable accommodation. So it can be something as simple as standing at your desk. It may be other accommodations. I'm really excited to see the video that Katie's bringing up, because I think that that is a fantastic example of that concept in action. And I'm sure I'll have more to say after I see it, because that was, I used to be an ABA specific teacher back in the day. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing attention to that.
I almost feel like it's the response that we're standardizing and not the behavior.
So our response is flexible. It's a fluid response.
Right.
Right, so even a kid who has a specific learning disability, you're not gonna do the same intervention for both kids, because what they're struggling with might be different. So when we're talking about behaviors, you might be talking about a kid, for example, who might be struggling with something in terms of executive functioning, being able to handle transitions, right? Being able to shift his mindset from one thing to another. That's a different teaching than somebody who, for example, is having a hard time reading the room and being able to engage socially and understand when they are pushing a joke too far, for example. Two different interventions in order to, both might violate kind of the social norms, but both interventions are designed to meet the kid where they are, to teach them the specific skill, versus what used to happen when we would do some sort of traditional behavior, like you messed up, so now you write that you messed up multiple times on a piece of paper, right?
Yeah, you're looking at the motivation and the preceptor to the behavior happening as part of why you choose that intervention, so you can more effectively address it. And I did want to note too, because I try not to use jargon without explaining it. IDEA 2004 is a reference to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act of 2004, which is, I believe, still the federal precedent for along with Section 504 and ADA. Yeah.
I saw Bill's hand, I think. Right? Bill, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. One alternate way to visualize what Jennifer's talking about, and this is of course not the only way, but whether or not a student can't or won't do something, okay? You're going to treat those two incidents very different. You know, in terms of behavior, if a student chooses to misbehave, that's different than a student who can't do that behavior. Two separate approaches. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bill.
And I just wanted to comment, because I think that how you, the educators, come together and have that conversation, and how often you do that is really important, because you as a teacher in one room may be doing this, but are our other and I'm not saying that they're not, but are you talking about this regularly? Because our kids, lots of times, kids, if you're not talking about this is working, this is what we're doing and this is what's working, with Jimmy, is really important.
Yeah, and
I
we have in our schedule, every Tuesday, we have what's called MTSS time. And a big part of that is what we call Kid Talk time. And the purpose of Kid Talk is for a teacher to bring a kid for a short class to say, like, something is not working for this kid. Help me problem solve, help me brainstorm. What do you know about this kid? You've had them in the past, or you've got them in a different class. What is helpful for that kid? What might I be doing that isn't helping this child take the next steps?
It's like a rotation essentially.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so I did want to bring one other thing up that you mentioned, Elizabeth. You said you're not an educator, and I want to just carefully push back a little bit. Every parent is an educator. They're the first and most important educator in a child's life. We have the distinct privilege of taking advantage of everything you've given us for a very short period of time with that child. Every time you are a community member and you interact with a child, you are a teacher. You may be a temporary teacher, but you are still a teacher for that child. So I believe we all have ownership and responsibility and can celebrate our children that way. So end of the year stuff, just put it out there. State testing, yeah, it's coming up. Bean Supper, West Windsor is a long-standing tradition. Our 5th and 6th graders do some serving at that to raise money.
I heard, just very quickly, I heard that there were 2 bean suppers. Did you tell me that there were going to be 2 bean suppers?
I've heard that bounced
Is
around a
that-
bit, but I have not been involved in that specific discussion. I don't know.
Colleen, do you have any idea?
I do not know any plans of the Historical Society or being suffers in West Windsor inside.
Okay.
Do you have the date for that, Jen?
May 13th.
Awesome, thank you.
It's the Saturday before Mother's Day. Hudson?
Is the Bean Supper a West Windsor Historical Society thing or an ABS?
It's a West Windsor Historical Society that partners with what we call SKIP, which is our parent organization, school and community and
Kind of
partnership.
like a PTO.
It's our version of PTO, yeah. And it's usually really well attended. It's a great chance for kids to connect with older members of our community, which we also know is a great resiliency component of helping develop sense of connection for students. So we've got field trips coming up, so one of the things I do need to bring up that means, so I think action, is we're looking to do some fundraising. So the Bean Supper is one version of fundraising. We're also looking to do a plant sale, bake sale, and 50/50 raffles in order to support, the field trip, so it doesn't become a burden on taxpayers, and so our children have the same experience. So we're hoping the board will support those things, because the field trips we're looking at, one of them is to go out of state into Boston, Massachusetts, do the Freedom Trail, where students take a specific spot on the Freedom Trail. This is our 6th grade trip, where they become the expert at that stop to be the tour guide. And then the other, we're going to plan on doing a Seco Science and explore the tidal pools there compared to the tidal pools in our area, and really look at what might be different, what might be the same, and why. We're getting our gardening going, so anybody who wants to jump into gardening, let me know. We could use lots of help now, lots of help during the summertime. We are adapting our field day to make it more of a nature-based field day. I'm super excited to see where that's gonna go. We don't know where the plane's gonna land, but we're enjoying the journey right now of thinking of really creative ideas. 5th and 6th graders, we're planning on we're hoping to do a camping expedition. We already have all the tents from a couple of years ago. We're just gonna do it right on campus in our outdoor classroom. And then we're planning on doing canoeing down the Connecticut River, and 6th grade graduation is coming up and concerts are coming up. And we are really looking to celebrate a ton of learning this year. Ton of learning, and we're super excited about it.
Are you doing the 6th and 7th grade mind meld?
So we are planning on
Canoe trip
Saturdays.
Saturdays,
Yeah.
are you doing a canoe trip or any of those kind of bonding?
Beforehand, we don't have anything currently planned.
I guess with the 6th grade from Windsor, is that how it's been in the past?
So the last time we did that,
we did Step Up with the kids together from Albert Bridge, the sixth graders, when we were 17, we had the sixth graders from Albert Bridge and the sixth graders from Windsor come on the same day to shadow and work together. So now that we're kind of at different years and different things, we haven't planned that yet, but it's always our goal to have multiple visits, as many as the team would like to come and do with the teachers on the middle school team prior to the end of the school year. We haven't planned anything specific like for events like this because we've been focusing on things like the SUI dances and those kind of events. But we also haven't, I don't think we even nailed down our Step Up day yet with our whole elementary team, but that's definitely an invitation that always goes out there.
Well, we have had the sixth graders over in the fall to do some work in the Passion Project time with some scheduling challenges and needing to meet some physical education demands particularly. We weren't able to sustain that this year, but in our preparing for next year, we're actually planning on that end of the day to be something that allows the students from sixth grade and Albert Bridge to come over multiple days of the week throughout the year in order to engage in passion projects and that kind of stuff. So that's pretty exciting. I mean, I think we tried to figure it out, but we just didn't figure out soon enough before, like once you get things scheduled to move all the moving parts around, particularly around the SU, like who comes in and supports OT, PT, right, all those things, speech, you can't just change stuff without everybody having to change. So it's, it became insurmountable this year with our best creative thinking.
You said you're working on gardens. Are our students here in Windsor, are you going to use, I know the town has some new gardens, so I don't know if that means that the students here are not doing it here anymore and they're doing it over there. Can you just clarify that for me?
We have had multiple people in the building want to use our gardens here on campus. So they've been used with elementary teachers, they've been used with some of our social emotional interventionists who take students out to do work on the gardens personally. We've had some teachers in our ACE classroom, some of the adults in the ACE classroom work with students in the garden. Last year, we had some people who were interested in our garden here take a field trip up to the fairgrounds to work up there. So every year, different people are interested in using it, and we usually give the go-ahead to any group who's interested to use it. And then if we have a lot of people, then we have to ask Mr. Taft to build us another raised bed. So we do what we can, but now that we have the community garden, we have access that as well.
Okay.
It gets a lot of use across the building. I mean, last fall, we had a group of social emotional interventionists plant garlic, and that should be coming out soon.
Oh, great.
They also tapped some of the maple trees that ring around and went over to ABS and watched the boiling and or at least contributed some sap to that boiling. So it's, yeah, it's an outdoor space.
And we also offer the option to our BTG, but now that we have the summer academy here, sometimes the summer academy team teachers want to use it. So it's kind of up for grabs. Everybody gets to have a hand in it if they want.
Great resource.
Have you ever had like the community garden or had some dialogue with community garden folks to have them come and like present to students or sort of, you know, do that kind of engagement?
I don't know if Kate knows the answer to that.
I'd just be curious. I know they're
I mean,
friendly
other
people.
than the gentleman who works with our school district on like composting and doing some of that work with us at school, we've had them come in and talk to us. We've definitely had guest speakers, I believe, from the community garden, but I wouldn't say like as a full assembly, kind of more like whatever teacher might have been interested has brought them in. I don't know the answer for sure.
That's a good question, because I know that in the Tom Marsh newsletter, I think it was recently where people were encouraged, if they were interested in this, to come on out and help the town gardens. So I was wondering
Historically, the garden here on campus has mostly been kept up by our BTG in the past.
BTG.
And then as we built it up, then we get the people who wanted to be outside with it in the fall and in the spring.
Okay.
But in the past, historically, it has started as our BTG garden, and that was the group that took care of it, the people who were here this summer, when most of the work in the garden is happening.
And BTG is Bridging the Gap, which is the after-school program. Because some people may not know what BTG is.
The after-school program and summer program.
Okay, we're gonna try Trumi again, yes?
Try Trumi again. I
All right.
edited the video this time, and I really apologize for that mistake. So it should, did it come up?
Wait a minute, I can go to different.
Don't click on that.
Where do
I embedded it. Well, I embedded it right there, so on mine, it shows like this. Just need to take a look.
You may have to refresh.
Refresh yours.
Okay.
Because I put it right over the picture.
All right, let's try that again.
Yeah, I see it. Well, let's see.
Took us back, give us just 1 minute.
Yes, click, that should do it, I think. The small victories. I need true media to help me figure this out. Buffering, I'm assuming.
It's just getting ready.
Just thinking.
Just thinking, it's tired. All right. Yes, Katie?
Pop to do that.
I should click the slideshow, not the play button.
Here we go.
I click the play button, that should now work out.
Few weeks on some haiku poems, and we have all written our own poem. A haiku poem is 3 lines. The first line is made up with 5 syllables, the second line with 7 syllables, and the third line with 5 syllables. So, these friends are very excited to present their poems to you today.
Outside, swing, fast, high. Outside, swing, fast, high. Play, bubbles, catch, big, bubbles. Play, bubbles, catch big bubbles. Run, fast, yard, playground, run, fast, yard, playground, run, fast, yard, playground.
Can't see you there, but we do a silent celebration.
Thank you. So the team of people behind that were really amazing, I said it earlier. And the interdisciplinary team, the amount of time, and we're really, we have many students across the SU who are non-speaking. It was wonderful to work with the family on this too, because it was a concerted, it was an effort, a positive, awesome effort between everybody to practice and then to figure out the technology clearly better than I do. So.
And it was a true haiku too.
Yes, yeah, has lots of, really cool to be able to have students who have the tools and the technology they need to communicate in all the different ways that we communicate.
I guess I'll just add, again, kind of coming a little bit from this world, that it really, for one thing, I appreciate you highlighting Trumi's awesome haikus, but also the team of people that worked to help facilitate this communication, to help teach the skills that are required, because as we were talking about special education earlier, like, it really is a different process for each different student, and 3 non-speaking students may have different behavioral or topography or needs that will have a different pathway to go through all of that. And I think that understanding that and seeing all the people that go into that work is hugely important. And even just reflecting on the, I think it was 10 years ago that I started being an ABA teacher, and then back when I was a student, and the way that technology has become more accessible and advanced and really allow students who would have lacked these opportunities not all that long ago to engage with their communities, to be creative, to communicate, and to let themselves be heard. I think it just needs to be acknowledged as loudly and as often as possible, and really, be understood. These are members of our community, and I've heard some efforts in other kind of corners of town governance and parts of the community about putting some site boards up around town and like finding ways to help facilitate communication and make our whole community and the school community and beyond more accessible for all sorts of folks. So it's huge to see this. Thank you for.
And I'd like to share that most all of our students are on their own, have different software.
Of course, yeah.
So it's not the same program. So all of these
Yep.
people have to learn multiple platforms.
Mhm.
And it's pretty amazing that they put a lot into it. And the students, it takes a long time.
Probably different hardware too sometimes.
Yes,
Yeah.
actually, we do have different hardware, and then a lot of the iPad stuff, but not all. We have some very designated devices. And we've got an amazing team of dedicated staff. This building, others, and they share resources together. It's amazing to see. And it's amazing to work with our families. So I also want to put in there that we support our families to integrate this in their homes so that this is everywhere for the student to do that whole approach, not just school.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work, and I mean, this kind of example is really just the tip of the iceberg of the kind of opportunity that it provides.
Thank you for that. Thank you. We have a loop from Nancy first, and then we'll come to you. Yes, Nancy?
It has been just amazing to sit here and hear what all these administrators from the two schools are doing and seeing these children. I just can't thank you enough for everything that you do for our students. It's just amazing, just amazing. Thanks.
Team effort.
I have a question about the March intensive, and I don't know who it's directed to.
By Kate.
And I have a pretty good rapport with Kate, but it's really not directed towards her, it's more like a suggestion. So a lot of these kids I see, from what I understand is they sign up for something. Now, if they don't sign up for anything, they don't have to go to school, so they think, right? So, and I know this because I had a lot of kids during March intensives at the rec center at 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock, okay? And so, and we're not just talking a handful, we're talking a dozen to 2 dozen playing basketball. There's one thing in this world you can't replace. You can be illiterate, you can be the worst basketball player, but if you're hardworking, your coach and your teachers love you. And so I come with a suggestion, and this is, you can take it or leave it. We lost the prisoners a couple years ago for all of the work around town. We paid $55 a day at the town for them. Now, that included all of the cemeteries that don't have a lot of money. There is things that we can give back to the community, and I'm talking the cemeteries, the golf course, these are nonprofits, right, the rec center. And if a kid doesn't sign up for something, I have a suggestion that maybe we force, as in, this is school.
Community service hours are
Correct.
required.
Yes, that we can clean up the cemetery. There is plenty of work in that big cemetery.
As a March intensive option.
As a March, if they do not want anything else, they are learning life skills, hard work skills, and a lot of hands make light work of a lot of things. And I know that the golf course would appreciate it, very much so as well. So that is just a suggestion.
Thank you.
Thinking of planning for next year, it's actually one of the things the middle school team was talking about adding into like their passion period or their time. And thinking about community service, the way they have to have community service hours for high school, but actually putting that into one of their options in passion period as well.
Because it turned, what I noticed is some of these kids have turned into 2 weeks of vacation because April break happens right next. So And the
Yep,
kids.
sorry, James. I didn't mean to cut you off, but we did, we brought back March Intent as full force this year for the first time in 3 years, and we have been sitting back and reflecting with where it went wrong and what we could do differently. And we're working, I know you've reached out to me personally, and I agree with you that we have a really good report, and I always would welcome the opportunity to have these conversations with you first. So if you would like to, whatever, we have a great relationship. Love talking to you. So I know that you're always saying, all hands on deck. I want to be part of the solution, and we're working really hard on making community connections for next year. And I'm not sure I don't know if we spoke about it afterwards, but at the last board meeting, I talked about our independent learning center that's going into effect next year, which would be a shortened day, and then kids out in the job force or following their passion project. But I know you and I always have the same end goal. We want what's best for kids, and I know we work really well together. So I look forward to working with you on this.
Yeah. I was hoping it wasn't you, just because I didn't want to, without talking to you first, but yes, let's work together.
Always.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add a comment about the video, and I just wanted to say what makes me extremely proud about this example is that this child and his classmates standing side by side in a school presentation to the whole K-5 parents, community staff, learning about inclusivity together side by side and seeing that it is, we as first graders can handle this. We can all do this together. It makes me a little emotional. Really a great video. Thank you for sharing it.
Okay, we'll switch gears a little bit. My report is not long tonight, but as always, I linked my supervisory union level report for your perusal at your convenience. But I will highlight from that report, I just wanted to give you all an update on our educational equity work. The equity audit has been completed. So it's been a long waited, but it is done. I have not had time to dig into it yet. I had a short overview meeting with Insight Education, and I have a meeting with Mary Gannon, our consultant, tomorrow, I believe, to take a look at it and to plan for how we're going to roll it out. We know that it's really important that the staff have some time to digest it, and the board and the community as well. But we feel strongly that the staff need to see that information first. It is all about us, right? No big surprises on the quick overview that I had. So, and another exciting announcement is the coordinator of diversity, equity, and inclusion interview committee completed interviews prior to the break. I was able to check references, and we have an outstanding candidate that has verbally agreed to the position, just working on the contract. So I'll bring that news to the SU board level meeting next week, I think, right? Yeah. So all good news on that front. Yes, Hudson, do you have a question? And we did have students on the committee. Hudson was one of them.
I was one of the students on the committee, as was Rebecca, Elizabeth, I think. Steve,
Jennifer was, yeah, Katie was.
Most of us at this table. Yes. But this candidate is going to do great in our SU, and I think we're all really going to be lucky to have her.
Yeah, agreed. And thank you for participating. We had another student as well on the committee, and the students just bring a level of insight that we don't always have as adults. So it's really powerful having them there, and we appreciate. We know it takes away from their time. So
is there a deadline for the contract to get signed?
Yeah, usually it's a 10-day once they have it in their hands, and this person does as of Monday. So we've been emailing back and forth, and I haven't had a chance to email back today, so I'll do that tonight, and hopefully seal the deal.
Excellent.
Okay. Next up, I just want to talk about, whoops, get two computers going here. A little bit about the validation updates, because I was the person that brought those to the board last month. Just to do a little recap and kind of where we're headed. So yes, the election validation resolution was presented at the last meeting. It was signed by the board members. It was not voted on in an open meeting, and it needs to be in, Elizabeth acknowledged that at the beginning of the meeting, so that will happen tonight. There was an election recount that was completed on March 16th. The recount validated the outcome and confirmed Amy McMullen as the elected board member. And she was then appointed school district clerk on March 13th. And then, as you know, resigned on the 27th from her board position and her school district clerk position. Yes, did I get a date wrong?
I just want to clarify something because so was Amy appointed? Oh, okay, she was appointed
School district clerk.
Okay.
By this board last
Yes.
month at our reorg meeting.
Got it.
So that's one of the things that we have to figure out. So board's currently following a process that will end in the appointment of the new board member. I think Friday is the date. Yep. And the board will need to appoint a new school district clerk, which is on the agenda as well. Yes.
And my question is, I love here, what, do we have a date for, just for the sake of clarity and completeness of our information here, do we have a date for Amy's swearing in? That's, we have the resignation date.
It was, I think, I'm not 100%, but I think it was 2 days before she resigned.
Yeah.
I
that's
think,
what I
but I'm
wanted
not
to
positive. So I can certainly follow up on that.
Yeah, if we had a confirmation for our records, just since I think everything else is listed here, I think that would be.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Yes, Hudson, do you want to ask something?
Who does the swearing in?
The clerk.
Or the assistant.
Or the
clerk.
assistant clerk in this case. Amy did not swear
Oh,
herself.
so the town.
The town, yes. Yes. Let me just write that down.
In my experience, that's it, and I've spoken to some other folks who have served on local boards. It's the clerk who happens to be on duty. So for instance, it was the assistant clerk who swore me in, but in other instances, it might have been the clerk who's on duty. But that's a process that essentially takes place. The clerk is the witness. You read the oath.
Yeah.
They sign, you sign, it's done. It's not a process that has to take place in a public setting, but it's recorded with that witness and, becomes official at that time.
So I will follow up on that.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah, okay. Moving forward, I did mention last month a public validation meeting, and so I just wanted to address that. Upon further investigation and discussion, lots of lengthy discussion with legal counsel, and the election JP of the state has been very helpful. Regarding the public validation meeting, it was concluded that the recount validated the election and we will not hold a public validation meeting. But, there were some missteps along the way in this election process. We want to own that, take responsibility and do a better job in the future. So to mitigate the issues regarding the proper posting of the warning, there were a lot of variables and factors at play there. No one intended to make a mistake, but mistakes were made. And the laws are complicated, I'm finding, which are we following Title 16? Are we following Title 17? There's a lot to unpack. I do know now. So the proper posting of the warning, the sample ballot, the board will need to appoint a school district clerk because that was one of the big factors in the election not running smoothly. We need somebody at the helm that knows what they're doing. So we're going to appoint the school district clerk the next meeting, and we're going to set up a meeting with the town clerks, the school district clerk, the board chair, a representative from the state election office, and we're going to have a meeting to review the procedures for a unified union school district, because there are differences depending on what you're categorized as. So that is our plan. We want to get it right, and we will get it right. So, yes.
So something that has been kind of batting around my head since this all happened, and I understand that there's a lot of complexity, and I think there was also a change in Title 16 or 17 recently, and correct me if I'm wrong about that.
Yeah.
I know about certain things that previously would have been correct and were not within the last 2-3 years. I don't know. I appreciate that this is coming together and we're gonna have the board chair, school district clerk come together. One thing that I was thinking about, as far as the larger local board, I think, and Rebecca, you can speak for yourself on this than anybody else, but I mean, I really learned about these issues as the rest of the community did, right? Like, because as a whole board, we are not really in-depth involved in this process. And I wonder, and I'd just be interested in maybe a brief conversation and some thought about this. Maybe we can think about this, you know, between now and when we start preparing for the next one. But would it make sense to include some other board members in, I don't know, like a subcommittee or some sort of work group, so there's a little bit more of a backstop of responsibility and some shared information understanding, so that when these processes are happening, there's like one or two more.
There's a check and balance, right?
Yeah, there's a check and balance, and really it's just, I think of it more as a backstop, right? Maybe it's just more, you know, semantics, right? But even at this meeting, I mean, if, like, I would be happy to attend this as well, just as another board member.
More than welcome.
Because I think that the more access that we have to this information, understanding of it, you know, I can appreciate the complexity of this. Again, I've said multiple times, like, I understand how mistakes happen. There was not malfeasance in this, but it doesn't do anyone any good when they happen. And I think that the more of us can be aware of these processes, and if something does start to fall through the cracks, we can catch it. It's what in kind of management talk we call Swiss cheese incidents, right? Is when there's one little mistake here, there's one little mistake there, and there's one more, and when they all line up, things get all the way through and hit that target you don't want to hit. So
you're more than welcome, any board member.
Sure.
When I set it up, I'll invite all of you, and whoever can make it can come. I did meet with Tom Marsh yesterday, and we had a great conversation about how we can collaborate and make sure moving forward that we're doing the things that we're required to do.
would it be an issue if a quorum of us showed up to that meeting, or should we maybe just designate like a couple people to do it? Yeah, I just, again, I want to make sure that we're, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
May I ask something quickly? I'm mentioning this because two things have popped in my mind today, and it's not to blame a world pandemic, but we learned a lot of things when that happened, and one of those, when you talk about checks and balances and having a backup, one thing we learned as a team when we went into the pandemic was we were now all alone in our homes trying to teach students, and one of the things we put into place very quickly was everything we did, we had to have teammates, 2 or 3 people CCing every problem, because now we weren't connecting day to day in a physical way. And a lot of our policies and all of our behavior forms that Christine said are going to be made public, our behavior checks are done in teams. A crisis screening is done with 2 people. So I like that because I feel like it's aligning in the same way with the whole piece that we're doing as an admin team of accountability partners. The other thing that we learned, or good or bad, happened with COVID and the pandemic was we were doing these meetings all at home and not here in person. So one thing that changes, we're still not even back to 100% in person. We've been doing hybrid since COVID. We're still doing hybrid. And one of the things that happened was we didn't need microphones because we weren't here. And then we replaced it with an owl. And now that we're hybrid, we forgot, I feel like there was a mistake. We forgot to bring the microphones back to the table. Because we used to have a microphone at the table to hear everybody's voice.
Yeah.
And we depended on that during COVID, and I feel like there was forgotten microphone. So a lot of things came back to me.
Yeah.
But letting people have one.
I don't remember there ever being a microphone.
Yes, there was. It would get passed around the table during school board meetings. It might have been before you were here, but it was definitely before the owl.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on that, I mean, one of the mistakes was the warning did not have the location on it. You're absolutely correct. What happened in that situation is, you know, you take the old warning, you make a copy, and you update it, and there was no in-person location prior year, and it just got by everybody, and that's why there was no intent.
No blame on the pandemic. No, a couple of things that happened since.
But we will do it better next year. Yes.
Well, I know it wasn't done intentionally, but I can't believe that through the procedure and proofreading it, you know, you guys got your own little thing.
Yeah.
a person who's just a taxpayer, who really cares, who doesn't have a child in this school, has no feedback, you know, it isn't your child comes home and say, what did you do in school today? What did you learn? And so you're hoping that everything's going good, you know, we want the best for every child, you know, but at least once a year during the town meeting, you know, it's been a thing of the past, but people should come and ask questions and support and feel good about the whole system. But when you really don't even have enough information where to go to do that, it's very frustrating, you know? And you start to look other places that you wouldn't have looked before, because now you're questioning the whole thing. you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think that's a great example, and that's like the downstream effect. That's the ultimate impact on community when you have, you know, what I'm calling Swiss cheese incidents, but it's a series of minor mishaps that lead to a larger problem. And what I'm hoping, however we do it, whether we're talking about it in terms of delegation or shared accountability or teaming or however we choose to do it, I would just love to see, and I am making myself available. You know, let's make sure we have a clear checklist. Let's make sure we have just a handful more brains at the table. You know, because again, we are all completely capable of doing all of these things. I have complete faith in this group. I think that it's, you know, and I think that there are all sorts of completely reasonable reasons. You know, I guess we're coming out of a pandemic. There are changes in the laws. There are changes in staff. There's turnover. These things happen, and what matters is how we meet that moment. How we learn from our mistakes, which I know is something that, you know, that you often. We do, yeah, and we have to. I mean, and I think that's really the measure of functionality of, you know, of governance and administration. So I'm really optimistic. You know, I acknowledge that a lot of mistakes were made, and I acknowledge there were impacts. And I think that we can and will do better. And I'm throwing myself out. I'm sure that other members of the board will as well. And I look forward to continuing to have these conversations.
So I've got you down, Davis.
Yeah, hit me up.
This doesn't have anything to do, but is there a procedure or a group that's in charge of going out and recruiting and attracting tuition students because the decline in enrollment? I know in the old days, they used to actually send out a group like him, you know, that's very, like, look what we got to offer, and speak with his peers and try to influence tuition students to come.
We do have our student fairs at the other schools where our team and Ms. Ryan would go to the other schools and take students along with her, the guidance counselor, people from different walks of life in the building, somebody from the math team, somebody from sports, show them some students. So we do those fairs at least Weathersfield and Heartland pretty regularly. We don't know about other locations. I think we've gone to maybe Cornish School in the past, and I don't know about other locations besides that.
I know what you're talking about though, David, because I did that when I was the career technical guidance counselor at Stevens High School. I would go to Sunapee and Fall Mountain, and I came to Windsor also, Cornish, and to recruit out, you know, to just talk about, and you're right, I'd always go with the student, like I said, who would talk about, you know, the different opportunities and the things. So I did that in the high school, but I don't.
I feel like we've gone out to the buildings where we can go, that makes sense, Weathersfield, Heartland, and Cornish, but I don't think it's easy for you to go into a community where they have their other choices, but we've gotten a lot of word of mouth, especially with sports.
And I think it's a time sensitive thing, because I'm sure they're deciding at about this time where they want to go. So it's good to do it all the time, but it's more crucial to do it at the time when they're really in their decision-making process, in my opinion.
Thank you for the praise, Dave.
What?
Thank you for the praise, Dave.
I have two. I have Caitlin Gould and then Kate Ryan.
James says I know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You
You know where? Okay.
They have their answers.
Okay. Caitlin Gould?
Yes, Elizabeth. Just to kind of piggyback on what Dave just said, I think it's, when thinking about enrollment, it's kind of twofold. You know, kind of, it's encouraging folks and those incoming high schoolers to be interested in coming to Windsor, but also I think an area to look at would be the number of students unenrolling, maybe to homeschooling and things like that on the other end when thinking about elementary and middle school. So thinking about why kids and families are choosing to unenroll from Windsor School, but also thinking about the students who then choose not to attend Windsor, what made those decisions?
Thank you for that, Caitlin. That's a very good point, and all of your points are very well taken. Kate Ryan.
I just wanted to kind of talk about what Dave said, and then Caitlin actually brought up another good point. But we do go out to high school fairs that they have at local schools. And on our end, we invite kids into our building. We have a day in the fall where they come in and they see our building and they can shadow for a day. In terms of, what we do as adults, I'm a shower upper. So I show up everywhere. Like Weatherfield's putting on a play, I show up. I meet the kids. I talk to them. I show up at sporting events. I show up at concerts. I show up at plays. I show up everywhere I possibly can just to make connections. But this is something we definitely want to build on. And I always, they can always say in a meeting, I always say well, as a choice for high school, it's important to me that we get people into our building because as you saw, our building's beautiful. And it's a great place to be. In terms of what Caitlin just said, I think that's a great idea to find out why people unenroll. That's a line that I personally don't cross because I know a lot of people personally, and it feels awkward, right? To be like, yeah, I'm just wondering, I don't want them to think that I'm judging, or I'm just curious because I want to make this school a place where everyone feels welcome and it's a place where everyone wants to go. So if we could find out that information in, almost in a safe, a way that feels good to the people who made that choice, I would love to do that.
James?
So I'm probably the worst reader in this room, maybe even on this whole thing. It was nothing for me to read Title 16, and it was definitely nothing for me to read Chapter 11 in Title 16. What I hear right now is we made a lot of mistakes, but they're not that bad, right? And I just feel like when my kid makes a mistake, you don't have to accept us. And I just feel like it's what we're doing right now is we're putting an official in there that hadn't read the rule book. So I encourage everybody to read the whole thing. And that's my thought.
Thank you. Misty, and then Davis, why did you raise your hand up here?
So you can see it. Use multiple forms of
I'm just going off of the homeschool conversation. I have a few friends who have pulled their children from Windsor, but also Wethersfield School in the past few years for various different reasons. They're not all the same, but just piggybacking off some ideas is maybe like just an exit survey where if not discriminatory, but just a survey like that you send out to families when they pull their kids, because a lot of these families are pulling their kids. It's not just and some are choice from kindergarten up. They just homeschool from the start, which is, in my opinion, a little bit different. That's a decision that they made for the education. But I would be more concerned or more interested in knowing why somebody would pull their child from a school system to homeschool. That perks my interest. And so I mean, it would have to, it's just an idea I'm throwing out, but something that you could think about as far as understanding why those children are being pulled out and how can you get that information. And like Kate said, without crossing a line, but also finding a fundamental understanding of why that happened. And maybe a survey could be sent to families when that happens or other ideas. But I do think that's a very important thing to know. I've seen a few families do it over the course of the last few years. And I think it's important that we know why these families are doing that.
Thank you, Misty.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Dave had commented, also regarding the high school. I remember hearing, and you probably know it, at Stevens High School, that was a school that housed 900, I think, kids at one point. When I retired from Stevens High School, that school were housing something like
Okay, yeah, it's like,
closer to 500 kids. And I think that, you know, it's really important for us to realize that the trend is that people are not having babies. And the trend is that our numbers are going down. I mean, they are having them, but I don't know where they're having them. But anyway, our numbers are going down, and it's really pretty unsettling. But I think that it is important to sort of get out there and speak to a lot of the things that, you know, you folks are doing, because it is amazing. And some people may think, oh, I have all of these choices, but really don't know about it. And I think we can take that opportunity to say, this is a choice, and this is what we offer. Come on in and check us out. If you choose not to, that's fine, but at least get out there, because I think it's important to get out there and let those in the community and around the community know, you know, we're doing all this stuff. You know,
Is it quick?
It's
Because
very-
we have not even gotten to the items for discussion that are on the
You
agenda.
know what, I can make it super quick and just say that Misty pretty much took my entire comment. I think it's important data to have. I think that
Yeah.
having a standard tool for exit, some kind of exit interview or data gathering would be great. And if administration could look at that and see if there's any good exemplars out there, that would be super cool. Thanks.
All right, I have one more slide and then I'm done. I just want to share the financial report that Larry put in the portal.
Wait, we haven't heard about, before that,
Is there more?
yes. The update on where our students are headed after high school and our visitor policy.
Kate spoke to that.
Oh, Kate, yes, the visitor policy is linked too. I forgot about that. Yeah.
She spoke about.
So Kate did, she put it in her
Okay,
slide.
okay.
Okay,
Sorry, thank you.
just, yep, and just so you know, the third quarter financials are here for you. They're in the portal. You can look at them. If you have questions, you can certainly email. But we're in the black, $141,338.23, so that is good.
Cool.
We're in the black. The visitor policy, sorry, it's not a policy. Right, we're trying to draft procedures. This came up with the student clubs and visitors coming to the clubs, I believe that's where it originated. Am I good on that? I think.
Essentially,
Yeah. So right now, we have a policy that we're working on at the SU level. It has not passed yet. It's called, let me just open this up.
I think we're on second reading on Monday.
Yeah, I
Is
think
that
we
right?
are,
Yeah.
I think. Let me just show you this. Where did that not come up? Hold on one second. So this procedure mirrors that policy if it's passed around student athletics, clubs, and activities, and what the administrative responsibilities are. And you can certainly look them over. I can share it with you. It's in draft form. And, you know, at the end of that, we added, I added, for any school-sponsored activity or student-run non-curriculum related activity, because those are specified in the policy. Guests are allowed to attend meetings by invitation only. The adult supervisor of the activity and the building principal shall approve guest list. So if we want our community here. I think one of the issues we had with one particular club this fall was that there were double the adults and fewer children. And we really want, we want the students directing this stuff. So we love the adults and we love their input and their ideas and their support, but just trying to manage that in a way that seems reasonable. So, let that soak in. We're going to talk about this at the SU level of the policy, and we can talk about the procedures as well.
I imagine the procedure will shift based on the policy as well.
Yes, it will have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and that is the end. We can move on to another part of the agenda, Elizabeth.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Items for discussion. The first one, which I added, was regarding our district clerk. And I think we will be, I believe that we will be able to vote on someone at our next meeting. We have plenty of time. We don't have to hurry about this. Take time to find the right person. And next is, let's talk about what we talked about during our executive session at our April 13th meeting. The conversation actually was covered by 1 VSA 313A. Goodbye.
Oh, okay, we're good.
This is April 3rd, to be clear.
Yeah. What?
You said 13.
No, 1 VSA chapter, I said at our April 13th meeting, and then I said.
It's April 3rd.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yes, thank you. Okay. Thank you. We talked about the questions that we had for we talked about the using the questions that we had used for our last interview. Right? We talked about an unannounced topic which related to a projected vacancy candidate, and we did not take any action. We added one question to that list, can you think of anything else? Anybody that we talked about?
Well, that wraps it up. And that just to,
We were only in there for like 10 minutes.
and just to be clear, the nature of the violation was not entering executive session, but it was not reporting out on like in brief, in minute form on what we had discussed during that executive session. Is that correct?
No.
Or, okay, I want to make sure I understand.
The nature of the violation was me announcing that we were going to be talking about the questions. And actually, the bulk of our discussion really had nothing to do with the questions.
Okay.
So you cannot go into executive session to discuss interview questions. It doesn't meet the requirement of the law.
Okay.
You can go into to talk about personnel stuff, candidate, things, but you have to announce it. And so this remedies that error.
We did announce it.
You did announce it, but you went in and you shouldn't have gone in for the reason you announced, the interview questions.
Right.
So to remedy that, you admit that you went in for a reason that you shouldn't have, and you share what you talked about.
Okay.
According to Sean Tui, the Lindenman lawyer that I spoke to about it. So,
thank you.
Misty, I see your hand.
Yes, could you please share what question was added to the list of questions, please?
Yes, the question that was added was, I believe, let me just look at the list of questions, but wait a minute. We just added one question, but then, the truth is that during the interviews, we didn't even necessarily use the list of questions, so there's that as well.
Near the top.
There it is.
Yeah, it was 3, and it was really more of a modification.
Yeah. One of the questions was, how would you define equity? What do you see as the role of equity in public education? And we added, for example, how do you plan to support the LGBTQIA+ population in our school community? That's it.
Thank you.
And, okay. Anybody else have anything they want to add about that? We did not take any action. We never take action in executive session. We never do. And the only action that we ever take is to exit executive session. which we can't obviously do in public. Anybody else? Yeah.
And it's just for 1 year, right? It's just
Yes,
until the next
it's
election.
until the next election.
Yeah.
And then,
Exactly, yeah.
and then,
Then it's a 2 years, the remainder of a 2 year seat.
yes, it'll be the remaining 2 years of a 3-year seat.
Correct.
Will be on the ballot in the next cycle. Yeah.
And I would even clarify that functionally, by the time whoever we end up appointing gets seated, it's really a 10-year.
Yeah,
It's a
10-month
appointment.
right,
Yeah,
you're right.
But, yeah.
Okay,
Not a 10-year, nobody
No,
wants
that-
that.
I'm just making sure, because that's right in title, chapter 11,
Yeah.
the title 16.
okay. So we went through the outcome of the recount already. Next, we have community outreach and forums. Rebecca.
Well, I was talking to someone in town and they've always had these community dinners. And I think they used to be at the Legion, Legion. Okay. And 2020, they stopped. And so they've just restarted again. And what it is an organization cooks and prepares a meal, and different people, anyone from the community is invited. And and that's a population, I did that a few times. And it's definitely a population that we would not ordinarily have at these meetings for different reasons. Some of them are older, and anyway, I thought as we want to have more contact with our community, although the only time that sometimes we have the community here is when there are some really, hot topics for some reason or other. But I thought this would be a great opportunity for the board to just, plan a meal. I'm sure we can use the kitchen downstairs, cook it, put it together, and then what we would do is we would just transport it to Trinity Evangelical Church on Main Street, and we would serve it. We would make sure that we would serve it, and it's an opportunity for us to also sit and eat with folks and talk to them and let them know who we are and what we do, and then we would clean up, and that would be it. And I just thought that it's a group that we don't access, and I'd say let's try and access any and all groups that we can in the community. So, and different organizations in town take on a month, so it's once a month, and so, we may not be in there until October of 2023.
Yeah.
But, it's something that we can put on the calendar, and we can,
So I guess I have a kind of confirm or deny question regarding open meeting law with the entire board taking part in an activity as a group, so long as we do not discuss
Yeah,
board
It's
business or
perfectly legal to be social. But
in a group setting with essentially a quorum of the board, so long as we do not do
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
quorum-related activities. I
That's
just,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
saying it out loud.
okay, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, but that's a good question. That's a good
Spread you out.
Yeah.
No talking.
Put us in
No, the goal is though is to communicate with folks and
We use
talk.
the buddy system.
Yeah.
So I don't know how people feel about that, but.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
Will you find out what we need to do?
Absolutely.
Back before COVID times, the middle school student council did run one, and it went really well. And I think that bringing that back gives that whole sense of community vibe. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Excellent.
So I just have one thing I want to throw out there. I know that we're running a bit over time. I know the next thing on the agenda is model school board resolution. I also know that went out fairly late for folks to discuss. I also know that we've been trying to get on the agenda for a long time, but is that something that we might want to kick out one more meeting since it's
Well, I haven't gotten through the other part of the community outreach and forums yet.
Apologies, I just wanted to make sure. I got out there.
I shared with you the proposal, we talked last time about the proposal from Tabitha Moore and Stephen Gillum about having a series of public forums, one for students, one for teachers and staff, and one for parents and community members. So I shared with you the proposal from Tabitha Moore and Stephen Gillum, and I told you last time that I was really having a hard time finding other organizations that do this kind of work to be able to compare their proposal. And I reached out to a group called the Creative Discourse Group, and I spoke with Sue McCormick there, and she told me that what groups there are that do this kind of work are completely overwhelmed at the moment, but she suggested that there's actually one very special group in the state of Vermont called the Starling Collaborative. They specialize in facilitation and restorative practices, specifically in the school environment.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I contacted them. I have not heard back from them. Does anybody have any particular suggestion as to what they think I should do, what our next steps should be, or should we wait to hear back from the Starling Collaborative? Yes, Davis.
One quick thing, can you just remind me, what was the first group that you talked to? I just wanted to capture it right.
Tabitha Moore and Stephen Gillum.
And I caught them, and then you said you spoke to somebody who referred you to the Starling Collaborative as
Yeah, the Creative Discourse Group.
Creative Discourse Group.
So Tabitha Moore is not available?
She is. They are available. They are the only ones so far who have given us a proposal.
Okay. Well, I hear what Dave is saying, something happened a while ago, a few years ago, and people want to be able to share their feelings about it. And I think that it's important that we move towards having those conversations sooner than later. And so I'm just concerned. I mean, I had a couple of questions. Were we going to plan those dates today, or?
I don't think we should plan any dates until we've settled on who we're gonna go with.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's the other piece. I'm just saying.
I mean, I don't think, to be perfectly honest, I don't think that's possible to plan dates and then find this kind of work is when I have been working on trying to find people to do it for 3 years now. And at the time when it happened, at the very beginning, at that time, there were about 5 organizations that did it. And at that time, those 5 organizations were booking like 2 years out. And that was Vermont based. At the time that all this was first happening, I asked friends all over the country whether they could recommend people who could do it in a meaningful way. And then it all sort of, our ability to even do it fell by the wayside. So,
I'd like to hear from the Starling Collaborative. I would like to hear from their Vermont base there.
Yeah, I want to hear from the Starling Collaborative. I think that at the bare minimum, and I understand that we obviously don't want to delay this indefinitely. We don't want want it to be on a scale of years before we have this conversation, because it's already been years. But at the same time, I also don't feel as though it's an appropriate amount of due diligence for this governing body to simply move forward because there's one group that came forward and said they can do it and the price is good. And I'm not saying that Gilman Moore are not qualified. They clearly are. I've looked into their qualifications. I do think that we should have some sort of proposal that we review from a bare minimum two different groups, so we have some grounds for comparison.
And we can discuss this. Did you say that someone who would interview the candidates in executive session? For
This?
Yes, for like the different groups to see what would be a best fit.
We're not there yet.
Okay.
I don't think we have talked about this at all yet because we're not, I have spent the last 2 months trying to find another group who I could talk to about this. Misty.
Yes, I'm kind of listening to the back and forth about this conversation, and I know that there's been an email sent out recently that in regards to the two names that have been put out, I've done my own due diligence to research these individuals. I work with a lot of families. We have to do a lot of, interventions and facilitation of meetings. I mean, there's a lot of organizations I think that you could probably look into where people are trained and have the ability to facilitate meetings between two groups who may have a difference of opinion. I mean, this happens in court. This happens with families. There are people everywhere who are trained in this. I work with them daily. I mean, I could probably even reach out to some people myself, give you some names of people who deal with families that are going to court, who have to facilitate meetings between parents. I think it's really important going through this process that you make sure that the individual does not have a biasness, because you will find yourself in a more contradictive situation and you will leave the meeting with unresolved situations. And I think that's what you want to avoid. You want to avoid leaving. This should be a resolution. It should not be left with controversy. It should not be left with anger or anguish. And I just really hope that this board significantly looks into the individual that they're going to hire, I'm assuming with taxpayer money, to facilitate a meeting of a very hot and heated topic that has really infiltrated our community. So I would just caution to move forward with, a very wide open stance and do your due diligence just to make sure that who you hire is able to hear both sides of a situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. Caitlin, I see your hand.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Elizabeth. I just want to piggyback on what Misty said. I too was able to do some research on the names that were given at the meeting. Must have been a couple months ago at this time, and just making sure to have somebody or have an organization that's going to come and mediate and facilitate this that does not have the bias, like Misty said. The two names that were given originally were, you can just do very basic research and you find that they're well-known activists for different movements, and I fear that is going to give the community a poor perspective and a poor on what the process that you're trying to achieve and what the goal of that is may be misconstrued. So I would highly encourage to look elsewhere as well.
Thank you. And I will say that if any of you does have names of organizations that are not, that do not just do mediation or facilitation, but actually I mean, I think what we want is not just a mediated or facilitated conversation. I don't think that will do anybody any good.
I think the idea of restorative justice is.
So if anybody has any names that they'd like to put forward, please email them to me because I have had a very difficult time finding candidates for this. Thank you. And anybody else have something that they'd like to say about that? Okay, hearing none. Let's see. Okay, now we get to the model, oh my goodness, the model policy or not policy, resolution that we've been talking about we've been talking around for, 7 months? I think 7 months, 6 months. And so I'm wondering, clearly you looked at it. Did you have a chance to look at it? Did anybody else have a chance to look at it? No.
I know it went out pretty late today and I had a chance to read it over, but.
Okay.
I read it.
Yeah. I read it too.
Yeah, I think I even started my information, okay, I'm just wondering that this may be a, sort of a document that probably we may wanna put alongside of the results of our equity audit. Because I think that a lot of what I'm seeing here, would help us say yay, nay, or, how do we move forward if we were able to look at the results of that equity audit. And that's my thinking. Because I think that if in the equity audit, there's going to be recommendations around curriculum, for instance. Okay, I mean, so here, one of the things I saw on page 1, it says, whereas the State Department of Education outlines curriculum and teaching standards that deliver high-quality curricula that teach the full sweep of U.S. history and equip teachers and students to develop their understanding of the world and their ability to make meaningful change in it. Then I see it again here, under be it further resolved that the district stands behind its curriculum materials, which must meet state academic standards, which takes me back to that question, state academic.
Well,
and then it says support culturally responsive education that centers students' diverse history, cultures, families, and community, thereby allowing students to see themselves reflected in the classroom, have strong relationships with their educators, and understand the world in which they live. I just kind of saw like similar kinds of things, and I was just wondering. I think it's an excellent document. I mean, it really speaks to making sure that we respond to the things that we need to respond to with children and to make sure that they're all being served well. But I think that I would consider maybe having the teachers be part of this.
Well,
let's
recall, if you will, that number one, this is a template, so it has a lot of different sections that are repeated over and over again, just as suggestions of where to put what. Secondly, it means that as a template, I mean, I have in mine, as you can see, big blocks that I think should be removed.
Okay.
And thirdly, recall, if you will, that the purpose of this was actually to resolve to support our teachers. I mean, there are areas in here that don't apply to our district at all. And like, we don't have state curriculum. And so there are, and I think focusing on supporting our teachers, with a focus on supporting our teachers, we can actually And with it being a district resolution and not an SU resolution, there's, it kind of shrinks it hones the purpose and also shrinks what we really need to have in it.
I think also, and these are taking a lot of what I would have said, so I appreciate that, and thank you for doing such a close read of it, Rebecca. I think the, having not taken quite as detailed notes and reading it in a shorter time frame, I think it would be helpful, to hold that alongside some existing adopted documentation we have. The equity declaration, I think that we have some existing policy at both the SU and the local level that we could put up next to it, and maybe remove some things that are redundant and don't necessarily need to be reiterated in another policy, and as you said, really focus in on those parts that back up our teachers, because that is the
Yeah, I don't think we need to
standard.
have a restatement of all of the.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that.
Welcome declaration or
Exactly.
A variety of policies that we have. We don't have to restate all of that, but we do, the whole purpose of this was to vocalize support for our teachers.
And I think that that's important, but I wanted the teachers to also have some part in this. I wanted them to be able to, for us to be able to say, this is what we're proposing, to support you. And sort of like, I don't know how you would do that, but I just think when you just you provide a document and you just don't have the sort of collaboration with those that are going to be affected by it, that it may miss the mark. And I want the teachers to know that this is a document that's proposed to support you, yeah. I don't know how you would do that.
I don't really know how you would do that either.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I really understand the purpose of collaborating with teachers on a statement to support the teachers. I think it would be a good idea to have them be here when we talk about it. We could maybe invite them to come to a meeting about it. When we actually do discuss the content of it. But
yeah, because that's what I would want. I would want them to be able to, I've heard this.
So what I would like to ask our board to do is to look at this. And what I've done here on my own is I highlighted areas that I thought could be dumped. As you can see. I did not cut anything from mine, but instead I struck through words and phrases that I thought should be replaced, and then I put my suggestions in all caps, so that when we come back next time and compare what we've each done, we haven't just deleted a bunch of stuff, and so we don't have to have everybody read their whole the whole document. You can actually have a basic comparison. Does that make sense? So if you went through and deleted a whole bunch of stuff, what you would have as a result would be a completely different document and unrecognizable to what I might have.
Yeah, just marking areas of
Mark
potential
areas.
omission.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
Does that make sense, Hudson?
Sure.
Yes.
Thank
One
you.
question.
Yep.
One small question, and at risk of processing this to death, which I certainly don't want to do, would it be possible or would it make sense if, we wanted to involve some of our faculty in the process of constructing this, to have a working group with a couple board members and maybe some faculty who might be interested in looking at this policy and generating that sort of document of possible omissions?
It's not a policy.
Oh, sorry.
It's a resolution.
Resolution.
And it's a board,
Yes.
just to be clear, it's a board resolution.
Yeah.
It's not the whole district, it's just the board's statement.
Okay, I think you answered my question. I wanted to make sure that that was voiced, because yeah, if it is a resolution, you're right, it does have less weight than a policy does. And
It's not a policy.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
Yep.
With an unnamed policy, it makes a lot less sense to do something like working group.
Hudson, do you have a question?
I was just stretching.
Okay. Okay. Now we have, it's 8:57, we are at items for action. Oh, shoot, okay. We signed the election validation resolution, but we did not take a public vote on it. Therefore, I will take a motion to approve the election validation resolution of March 13th, 2023.
So moved. Nancy?
Second, Bill.
Okay. Davis, how do you vote? Nancy, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Bill?
Aye.
I am an aye, so, okay, then the last thing is setting the next agenda.
What about,
Robert's rules, did you want to talk about Robert's rules for small boards?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, no, I did not want to.
what about resignations?
Oh, yeah, resignations,
There are two.
thank you, I knew something was missing.
It is Julie Grasso and Olivia Pierce, I think.
Okay, oops. Okay, I will take a motion to accept with regrets the resignations of Julie Grasso and Olivia Pierce.
So moved, Davis.
Second, Rebecca.
Okay,
That was what I wanted to ask.
that was the thing that I
Katie.
was, yeah, okay. Davis, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Rebecca, how do you vote?
Aye.
Nancy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
I have an aye. Yes, Misty? Is that who's for a second? Yes.
Yeah,
Misty,
sorry.
Misty.
When you all voted on the, I'm just confused. I only heard 3 votes. I heard, Bill's vote. I believe it was Nancy's vote. I don't think I heard Davis's vote or, I don't think I heard half the board's vote, actually. You only called on 3. You only called on 3 of the board members, and I'm confused. Does not everybody have to vote?
I did call on all of the board members, actually. I have called on all of the board members for 3 votes, and for each of those 3 votes, all of the board members have said aye. And those board members being Davis, Rebecca, Nancy, Bill, and me.
Thank you for clarifying. I did reach out to somebody else on the call. They didn't hear the other votes either, so I just wanted to clarify. I don't know if there was a glitch in the system. I thought maybe it was just me, but there was another person on the call who said they didn't hear the votes either. So for clarification, everybody voted aye.
Yep.
Missy, you're right. We did not hear those names, Elizabeth. So she's correct, but I just assumed you had called up when we just didn't hear it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There was a glitch in the matrix.
And this is
Thank you for
specifically on the
clarifying.
Is this on the resignation vote, just to be clear?
Yeah.
The other vote.
Yes, thank you.
Have you guys not been hearing the whole meeting?
No, it's been fine. It was just that.
I have actually heard the whole.
It was just that.
Agree. Same as
Yes.
Nancy.
The validation vote, was it?
It was the validation vote, and I just want to clarify,
Yes.
Julie's letter is in the portal, but she is not coming back. She didn't technically resign. She is not signing her contract.
Okay,
So I don't know if you want to change that motion or need to.
so then let's go back to, okay.
Just want to make sure we're doing it right.
I'll take a motion to rescind the acceptance of
Julie Grasso.
Julie Grasso's resignation.
So moved, Davis?
It was also, sorry to interrupt, but it was also the validation of the election resolution is where I was getting cut out on the vote. So I only heard Nancy and Bill's vote. I did not hear Davis's vote over that. So I don't know. Nancy, I think, heard the same thing. It was weird. I don't know if it was glitchy, but there was definitely a disconnect during that vote. I'm sorry.
So it's Rebecca and Davis that she just needs to hear, because you were the last one, Elizabeth, and you said, and I am an I. So we heard three.
Okay. Right now, we are voting on rescinding the acceptance of Julie Grasso's resignation. Okay? I'm gonna go through the list and I'm gonna read your names really loudly, but please unmute right now. What?
And I will project.
And we will all project. Ready? Davis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rebecca, how do you vote?
It's a vote.
Nancy, how do you vote?
Aye.
How do you vote?
Aye.
And I am an aye. So, Julie accepted a resignation from you. Misty?
Oh, well, Misty.
I heard that resignation, and Julie, I want you to know, as a teacher to both of my Windsor students, it's a very sad loss to our Windsor community. You have been an absolute amazing teacher, and I thank you.
Thank you, Misty. Let's see. So now we're going back for, hold on one second, okay? Right now, we're going to go back and we're going to revote. Please, board members, please unmute yourselves. We're going to go back and revote just to confirm.
The election resolution validation.
Yeah.
That one. Okay.
We are confirming, we're voting to confirm our election validation resolution. And I'm going to go through this very, very quickly. Ready? Davis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rebecca, how do you vote? Aye. Nancy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Did you hear it that time, Misty?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
It wasn't just Misty, everybody.
I'm sorry?
I said it was everybody, not just Misty.
Well, Misty was the person who spoke up about it, so I just wanted to make sure that she heard it.
Well, I mean, Nancy, did you hear it as well?
Yes, it was fine.
Great, thank you.
I'm just wondering if there's a process of an exit interview for resignation where you can
Yes,
find out.
there is. It's optional. Not everybody takes it, but some people do. So,
Julie put in her letter why she's leaving, and it's good news. She's engaged and
she's moving on from us.
Yeah.
No.
I just hope that the exit interviews are 100% honest. But I mean, honesty and, you know, anyway, I appreciate Julie Grasso's, she has dedicated herself to education in Windsor. She has been absolutely amazing. I mean, beyond what most teachers are. And I don't know. I don't know if she's getting enough recognition here, but she's done a really great job.
Well, thank you. I think it's it's really important and wonderful to hear. And I'm sure that if Julie does hear this meeting, that she will appreciate you saying that, Misty. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, the next on our list is setting the next agenda. And so what I've got so far is reviewing and doing a deep dive in open meeting law and also on Robert's rules for small boards. Now, I'm going to send you both, or you all, both open meeting links to both open meeting law and Robert's rules for small boards. It's important that we, or it's not important, but we have a small board and we do not need the formalized aspects of Robert's rules. We can be more relaxed if we follow Robert's rules for small boards. So I'm going to send you all open meeting law, the statute and the explanation. There's a really great explanation of the open meeting law, I think on the VLC, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns website, but I'll send you links to all that stuff. And also a link to Robert's rules for small boards. And I would like for us to vote on Robert's rules for small boards at our next, or have a discussion about whether to adopt Robert's rules for small boards and possibly vote on it. Also at our next meeting, we will talk about candidates for district clerk and possibly vote on appointing somebody. And I've got, we'll make sure that we have something to amplify voices at the next meeting.
Thank you.
And I've got, you know, every year that I have been the board chair, I have started off with what I have on here as goals for the Galdang board this year. And that's what I like to do is have a reorganizational meeting and then have the next meeting be about broad goals for the board. And then at the board retreat, we can actually talk about more specifics. But at our next meeting, I'd like for us to think about and discuss broad goals for the board this year. I know that community outreach is at the forefront of everything for us, but we can talk about how we're going to go about doing that and what other broad goals we might have for the board. But please come prepared to talk. Please come with ideas and goals, and don't think of them an hour before the meeting. And at our next meeting, we will also talk about when we would like to have our board retreat for the year.
I have two more things, the resolution and the community forum.
Thank you. Is there anything else that, yes, Misty?
I was just curious, will you advertise for the clerk position and will you consider a pay increase for that seat? You might not be able to answer that tonight, but I am curious if you will advertise and if you will consider a pay increase, because I do believe with voting, it does come with a hefty responsibility. So I was just curious about that. Thanks.
Thank you. I think we can talk about that as part of our discussion of the district clerk next time. Although I should note that, yes, we should increase the pay for it, but we don't have that in the budget. So,
I just want to ask, as far as, will that come in the that go under the administrative report, the piece on where our high school students are going? That would come under the administrative, right?
I imagine so, yeah.
Okay.
I think Kate's gonna touch base on that
Okay.
next time, or when we get a little more information.
I'll list it under the admin report.
Yeah.
Misty, do you have a question?
Yeah, just piggybacking off what you said, as far as the budget, I know that there was money looking into facilitating the Tiffany Riley conversation, which was looking at between $1,000 and $2,000. I was just wondering where that money would come from that couldn't be budgeted into the clerk position.
We set that money aside, I think, 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? We set that money aside 2 years ago. So it sort of depends on what, who we get to do it.
I think too, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I think that when it comes to compensation for people with official roles in the board too, that is something that has to be done during the official budgeting process. It kind of falls into a different bucket and has some different stipulations around it.
Thank you.
I don't want to knock heads with you. That would be bad. Okay. Does anybody else have anything else they would like to add to the agenda? I mean, this is not the final agenda, but,
it's a lot.
I think we're,
It's a lot.
we got stuff to do.
Yeah.
then I will take a motion to end this. Oh, yeah,
Do you know when that next meeting, the date of that next meeting yet?
yes, it is.
Would that be the second Monday?
Yeah,
It's the second
That would
Monday,
be the 8th.
Monday at 6:30.
At
Yep.
6:30?
And for general reference to, typically, it's the second Monday of every month. The reason that this one is different, is that the second Monday of this month fell during school vacation week, and I think there was also a conflict with this Monday, so we moved that to Wednesday.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep. I will take a motion to end the meeting.
So moved. Davis.
Second.
Too late, Nancy.
Over.
Okay, hold on a second. Since we're hybrid. Davis, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rebecca, how do you vote? Aye. Nancy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
I am an aye. I will let Hudson vote on this.
Aye. Hudson votes aye.
Aye.
All right, Hudson.
All right, bye, everybody. Thanks for being
Thank
with
you.
us.
Thank you.
Thanks for sticking it out.
All right.